Well, happy Sunday morning, everyone. Welcome to the program, such as it is. This is Sunday morning's program, so it's less formal. Those of you who are new here and don't know this is much less formal than our daily show, the Intrepid Radio program, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday of the week. And this is where we just get together for morning coffee on Sunday. And it's really bright in here today. But I don't want to get up and adjust anything. Maybe I can do a little adjusting right here. There we go. Soften that just a touch. So how many fingers am I holding up, says Curtis? Batman. All of you new guys, welcome to the Thunderdome. This is it. This is it, baby. This is the casual, more calm and the more, what was the George Bush Sr. thing? A gentler, peaceful, more calmer. I can't remember what his quote was, a gentler something nation. So this is a gentler show. Then didn't George Bush Sr. remind you all, at least in his vocal tones, of Mr. Rod? Because he'd come on as president of the United States and he'd talk like, how many of you are old enough to remember George Bush Sr. as president? Was his presidency so lackluster, or I don't know, he was not a dynamic person, so was it's so calm and lackluster that we just kind of forget about him. We go, well, let's see, we had Reagan, well Nixon, then Reagan, then who came after Reagan? Oh yeah, his vice president Bush, and then there was Clinton. And Clinton, we remember very. So we go Reagan, Clinton. Who's the next big president? Remember? And you kind of remember George W. Bush Jr. But then you go on to Obama. And then, of course, yeah, you do, says JP. He does. Yeah, I remember George Bush. And I remember all that was going on in politics and the world when George Bush, lackluster. Yes. That's it. Are you putting he was lackluster personality, not the era, not what was going on. I mean, we had the first Iraq War under him. We had a lot of stuff going on, but he makes me think of a very lackluster person. So his, Desert Shield, Desert Storm. Yes, he presided over those, but I look at George Bush Sr. as being somebody who is, he kind of fades into the woodwork, while the events going on around him did not. They stand out. I've got to put on, my glasses, and I left them in another room, so I'll just squint. What does Daniel Craig say? For those of Irish descent, happy St. Paddy's Day. For the rest of us, do we acknowledge the conversion of pagans to Christians by St. Patrick as religious persecution? Do we acknowledge all the freaking green being somewhere between cultural appropriation and commercialism? It's a confusing holiday, thus all the drinking. Now, you do bring up a good point. I wasn't going to make a big point out of George Bush, but so we can move on from that, unless, Jason, you want to talk about him some more. The things going on around him that he was a big part of, yes, but okay. I'll be quiet about George Bush now, because we could crack that egg wide open and talk about that all morning if we want to. Keep squinting, Scotty. I like to say you're winking at messes. Oh, at me. See, I see the M-E-E-E as M-E-I-E. You know what they did when they fixed my eyes? They put new lenses in my eyes, and they said, you're going to be more, it's going to improve my distance, but my up close is going to be, I'll still need my readers. Well, my cheaters don't really work anymore. They're my bifocals. I've got these that I use for, right now I see my keyboard crystal clear. So when I'm illustrating, these work well. When I'm down looking close at something. but my eyes for here to the computer, I can blink a couple times and I can see things. Yeah, and hey, Steph, just want you to know, I'm winking at you. Both eyes. I just can't decide which eye I want to use, this one or this one, to do my winking. So wouldn't be prudent, not at this juncture. I don't know. Is it just me about George Bush Sr.? I tend to gloss over him in my memory of how the country worked and the presidencies and so on. Is that because I'm gauging personality as opposed to, I got to do something about that light. Hang on. That is so bright. It's messing with me. And I can only do something with it like by doing that. And as long as I'm up, I'm going to get my glasses. There we go. All right. I may have a nice shirt on, but I am still in my sleeping shorts. So, one term. See, those don't even work as well. The bifocals on the bottom work really well. It used to be the tops. Now it's the bifocals I need. Yeah, it's understandable. He was a one-termer. Yeah. And Bill Clinton came right after him. So, and Bill Clinton, he gave us a lot of excitement, didn't he? So, and I didn't agree with a lot of what Bill Clinton did, but you look back on him now, he did some pretty decent things fiscally. He had a good stand on the border and immigration. But speaking of the border and immigration, what about what Daniel Craig was saying about St. Patrick? Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. By the way, I forgot to say that right away this morning because Sam the Leprechaun and I, we celebrated it Friday night on the radio show. So, so I wasn't thinking St. Patty's Day today, even though that's what it is today. Raini's a little disgruntled today because St. Patrick's Day, everybody, she says, I like St. Patrick's Day. She says, I like the St. Patrick's Day parades and I like all this stuff. She said, it seems like everybody's doing stuff, got stuff scheduled. There's a cheerleading banquet today at 4:30 for our little girls who are in cheerleading. There is some other sports thing going on today. There's, something I've noticed, and we'll get to the St. Patty's Day in a second here. But have you noticed this? And maybe if you have kids in school, you'll notice it more. But I found less and less respect or reverence is taking it too far, but or sanctity even further, but less and less respect for Sundays. Now, what did Sundays used to mean? Sundays used to mean that was the go to church time was Sunday. It didn't matter what denomination you were generally going to church on Sundays. Now, as we've talked about on the regular show, there has been a decline in religion as opposed to spirituality. So churches are going down anyway, slowly. They're becoming less important to people. But I've missed the county. Raini said, I wonder if the parade is going to be today. I said, if it's going to be today, it's going to be in the afternoon. But we hadn't heard. There's the next town over does a big New Richmond, where we used to live, always does a big St. Patty's Day parade. And we always like going to the St. Patty's Day parade. I always put on my kilt and we go to the parade. And however, it seems that the city does less and less on Sundays, not because the city is religious or respects one religion over the other, but the city respects and recognizes its churches. Somerset in Wisconsin is full of churches and that meet on Sunday mornings. And so the city doesn't usually make, as far as I can tell, not a lot of civic activities going on that conflict with Sunday mornings. mostly for the churches, I think, out of respect for the churches in the community. But you don't see the schools doing that. You don't see other organizations doing that. Any given Sunday, I can give you a handful of things that we could be doing with our kids and that we normally do, volleyball tournaments to wrestling matches to baseball to football, football not usually, banquets, all these kinds of things. The scouts are no different. Scouts, we're doing this on a Sunday or that on a Sunday. You know what bothers me about, and this is not a Sunday thing. When is Father's Day this year? Scouts always had something going on Father's Day Sunday, a camp out or something. And it's not, hey, let's celebrate Father's Day. Let's have a father kids, type of activity. No, it's just our normal Outwoods overnight is on Father's Day this year, or for an organization that promotes family and it would be like the Scouts. And I asked this question. I said, with Mother's Day coming, would you ever see the scouting organization plan an overnight in the woods for the boys on Mother's Day weekend? No, that doesn't happen, but it happens with Father's Day. There's no respect given to Father's Day. I don't know why, because that seems contradictory to their message. Well, it's the only day we could find open. And I'm not being legalistic about it. It doesn't really matter. But why would you schedule things, activities? School does the same thing. School activities, scout activities, all of that is all falls all over everything else. And I've never seen more. When I was growing up, not that long ago, in the 70s, we didn't have very much at school that happened on a Sunday. Sundays were set aside. That's the religious day, if you will. That's however they looked at it. And now it's very different. I think they should alternate year to year, says Steph. Seems like it would only be fair. I agree with you, Steph. They should alternate those things out. There ought to be, but it's not a huge problem for me. I'm just commenting on it. Sometimes it bothers me. And I was at I took Ellery to one of her den meetings for her troops, and one of the moms there is somebody that's in charge of scheduling things, and the parents sat down at this, and usually Raini's the one that takes her to the girls' scout thing. And she gave out information about something, and and this is this day. I said, "Isn't that Father's Day?" I said, "Is this being held on Father's Day?" And the answer I was given was almost a terse brush off. And I know these people, they're friends, not my, personal buddies, but they're people I know. And it was like, yes, let's move on. And it's like, oh, excuse me. Hey.
Hi.
How you doing?
Hi.
You were more energetic earlier. What's going on? What's happening with you?
I'm watching the Aristor Taylor's version upstairs.
The Aristor Taylor's version?
Yeah.
What is that?
It's her Aristor concert.
Eras tour.
Eras, not Aries.
Aries tour.
Eras.
So the Taylor Swift Aries God of War tour.
It's Eras.
Don't shake my chair. I'm drinking coffee. It's hot. Yeah, Steph, isn't that the truth? Steph says growing up on Sundays, we were lucky if you could find a gas station that was open. That's very true. It's like we'd be riding to church and go, "Oh, I hope you got gas yesterday because it's Sunday today." Might not be an open gas station anywhere. How about you? Should we start going to church?
No.
Why?
Because Because it takes up our Sundays.
Because it takes up our Sundays. Going to church is now in the way of what our normal Sunday activities are.
Yeah.
So, yes. Yeah, the blue laws, Carlene. You remember those? Blue laws. You can't have a restaurant open. You can't have a gas station open or a store open. I'm okay with it. You know what bothers me more than anything is Christmas Day. Now, yes, we've taken advantage of it because it's there. But things like Christmas Day, you can run out and, well, let's just go to Walmart. They got it. So, well, I think Walmart closes on Christmas Day now, much to their credit. But we don't have holidays that are holidays anymore, unless it's a banking holiday. If it's a banking holiday, it deals with finance and things like that. Oh, you got to be closed on this banking holiday. Is Grumpy Stack here, or are you calling me Grumpy? Oh, Grumpy Stack is here. Church is a racket. To a certain extent, Grumpy, it is. Now, I know that there are churches that do good teaching and have good ministry, and they got to have a day a week. Let's have a day a week where we all get together. I understand that. I get it. In this culture, in the United States, the Western culture, we've kind of earmarked Sunday morning, the first day of the week, as the day for going to church. I got no problem with that. If I started a church, I'd probably do a Sunday morning thing. What did I see? JP said something. Hey, kiddo, don't give your old man too hard a time. Yeah, that's about it. She was gone by the time that got up there. So she always gives me a hard time. It's my kids all give me a hard time about one thing or another. So this light, it's just hard. It's harsh today. I don't know why. Maybe it's my eyes. Just seems harsh. My eyes have a feeling from post-surgery on both my eyes now. They feel heavy all the time. Like, oh, I could just close my eyes. And I was lazy as shit yesterday. Whew. I blamed my eyes. So it's not right with this. Just not in the right spot today. It's giving me... That's not right either. No, whatever. There we go. So, what all we got? What's Grumpy Stack got to say today? Grumpy Stack. We got storms rolling through. YouTube keeps buffering. YouTube. Nice. Oh, was that a typo? Or was that a voice to text? So, which church says Carleen Group went on Saturdays? Isn't that Jehovah's Witness? Or do they still do Sunday? I had JWs come to my door yesterday. And first of all, right away, because it's two guys. I never have two guys come to my door for anything unless they're wearing uniforms and badges. Badges! We don't need no stinking badges. So, isn't Saturday afternoon? It's like, let's do mass on Saturdays so everybody can have their Sunday free for picnicking. I mean, is that where that started? I don't know. What did I get here? Oh, Dan Madsen sent me a 407 beers ago. It's got Abraham Lincoln with a Irish top hat on, holding a beer. 407 beers ago. And you know, Dan Madsen, a huge Lincoln aficionado. He's got a Lincoln museum in his house. So happy, if you're listening, Dan, happy St. Patrick's Day to you as well. Grumpy says, Carleen, you said, no, my grandma used to go. Just can't remember what it was. Was it Seventh-day Adventists? Because seventh day would be Saturday. Because the first day of the week is Sunday. Not sure. I'm still processing everything that's been going on the last week and a half. That's right. Grumpy had some killings take place right outside his shop, contemplating moving that business because the neighborhood's getting bad. And some Catholic churches have Saturday Mass. Yep, they do. Mordecai says JW Seventh Day Messianic Jews. They all knew the seventh day. Saturdays. Hey, Mordecai. We used to pronounce it Mordecai because we'd hear that in the South. And Mordecai came and he said, Mordecai, good to see you. Good to have you here today. And by the way, if you're new here, and anybody who's new here, Sundays with this show is just get your coffee and let's have a little morning show on Sunday. Just to kind of chat and talk. It's not the formal show. Intrepid Radio is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern for the official show. Let's see. What did Grumpy say? I'm strapping now, so I'm safe as I can be. You mean strapping like, I'm strapping. You're muscular and strong now. Yes. What do we got? Steph going, what? What are you butting about? Daniel Craig is drinking with Lincoln. Hey, I've been watching kind of a good series on I went ahead and subscribed to Fox Nation for $6, I think it is. And I only did because there was a series being advertised that I wanted to see. And it was Rob Lowe is hosting it, but it's on the American Revolution. And it's actually I think in particular, it's on what triggered the American Revolution. It was the Boston Tea Party. And I have never seen so much detail. The Boston Tea Party's always gone over quickly. It's like, even in school, well, the Sons of Liberty, and they did this as in a revolt against the taxation without representation, the tea tax. And what I didn't realize was all the people involved in that we know. Can you tell me, without looking it up, which of our founding fathers were part of the Boston Tea Party? It's good. It's good to know these things. And they pulled it off in such a way that they wanted England to know that this wasn't a bunch of rabble-rousers, rioters. These weren't George Floyd burning down BLM people having a peaceful protest, burning down half of the business district in South Minneapolis. What was it? Sam Adams, he was the big one behind it, JP. You're right. Samuel Adams. Did you know he got John Hancock involved in this in a big way? Hancock was kind of the money, but Hancock stood to lose an awful lot. He stood to lose his business with this gamble. And there were other people that I can't remember their names off the top of my head. It was a name like Mordecai. Now that we said Mordecai, there was somebody, Mortensen or somebody like that. I can't think of his name. He was kind of the more thuggish guy, but he was the head of these groups that would go out and they burn your building down. But in this case, they wanted to make a point with England that we are going to protest, but we will do nothing that will cast any of this in a rabble-rousing light. They even, did you know, after the Boston Tea Party, they were told, they were under mandate by the leadership of the Sons of Liberty that said, do not, Sam Adams and Hancock, they were like, there was one other guy, Paul Revere was part of it. There was one other guy, Dr. Warren was part of it. And there were 3 ships, and they divided it up. There were 90 men who carried out the Boston Tea Party. And 3 of the men had were in charge, one of each one of the ships that had come in. And it was only 2 ships until the night before they did it. And there were all these deadlines. Had to be, the British government could confiscate the ships after the 16th of December of 1773. And so they're they waited this thing out for a month. That tea sat on those ships for a month before they were going to be unloaded. And it was just buried in red tape, is the way. And the captain of the ship was pro-patriotic. He was American-born. And so it was very interesting. And it was the night of the 16th that they boarded the ships. And they made sure that there was a public meeting going on, because who got blamed right away by the governor, the English governor? Why, Samuel Adams, John Hancock, all these other, Paul Revere, all these leaders of the Sons of Liberty who were outspoken about issues. They weren't committing treason yet, but they were speaking out for months, if not a few years, about the conditions of government, and government shouldn't be doing this. They were just doing what you see in the newspaper editorials now, kind of thing. But this Boston Tea Party was a huge step. That was really the issue that launched revolution. And so they wanted to get, we know who did this. It's the Sons of Liberty. But they held a meeting that night and deliberately did this. And they showed reenactments of this, how they're all talking about it. And they said, we have to, as the leaders of the Sons of Liberty, we have to be free and clear of being able to be charged in this. So they had meetings all evening. While this was going on, they had a meeting where they were urging the ship captains to go meet with the governor and try to negotiate something about the tea and sending the tea back to England. Have him send it back to England, that we're going to protest this way. We don't want to pay this tax. No, don't tax us without us representing us, with no representation. And this went on, and they made sure that there were hundreds of people that saw them at this public meeting, and all these leaders. And so they knew it was them, but they knew that they had pulled this off. The English government did. So it was very, very interesting. And Steph in the chat. Now, if I could just find a Southern sugar daddy. Grumpy, find you a mama. You guys in the chat room. For those of you new here, this goes on all the time. These are my people in the chat room. So I watched that series and I thought that was very interesting. This all really dovetailed off of Daniel Craig saying something about that led me into this. I find it amazing and astounding that at least one of the wooden tea crates from that event still remains, and it's on display in a museum. Yeah, isn't that amazing? There's only one that they found. Well, these tea crates, they were just little wooden crates about this big, and they crack them open, and it was all just tea in there. There's no bags. They didn't have tea bags. They weren't, hygienically sealed or anything like that. And they just opened them up and they dumped all the tea in the harbor. Or they threw the crates in the water. And so even afterwards, something I found out, I didn't know this, after they were all done, they took brooms and they swept the decks. Any fallen tea, they swept it and they dumped it over the side of the ship. And they said the mandate was, you take nothing from those ships that is not tea. You do nothing, you destroy nothing, you leave no mark. This is a pure protest against the tea tax. And that's all it was. And so they showed them, even in this recreation, at the end, they're sweeping up the decks to make sure they left it in pristine shape. All they did was get rid of the tea. And do you know what this tax was? And we've said this before, and most people know this now. Do you know the American Revolution was really sparked over, it was taxation without representation, but it was a tax of 4%. 4% is less than my state tax by half. Minnesota state tax, when I lived over in Minnesota, we've lived in Wisconsin for about 15 years. But when we lived in Minnesota, where I lived my whole life, the last one it was like 7 cents, 7.5 cents. I need to tax somebody a half a cent. But that was the tax in Minnesota. I just heard yesterday, because I don't pay close attention, the state tax is over 10% now. 10%. I could find out real quick, just to be accurate. Hey Siri, what is the Minnesota state tax?
I found this on the web.
Thank you. You couldn't just say, I got to read the small print. I'm trying to see. Let's try that again. I'll ask it differently. Hey Siri, how much is the Minnesota state tax?
I found this on the web.
Keep saying, I found this on the web. I can't read it without opening up articles. Not more than 5.38. That's old. There's something about that. I don't know what it is. There's something different there. It's not just giving me a straight answer. It says right here 5.36 to 9.85 state income tax rates. Well, I'm not looking for income tax. I'm looking for tax on goods and services. What do you call that? A retail tax? Sales tax. Let's try that. Thank you, JP. Hey Siri, what is the skip that. Siri, what is the Minnesota state sales tax? Here's what I found. It still doesn't. My eyes are killing me. Minnesota is 9.03% as of 2024. Okay, it's not 10%. 9.03%. Again, how do you tax somebody 0.03% of their dollar? But there it is. That's the state tax. So 9%, 4% in Revolutionary War era, colonial America was what sparked the no taxation without representation. Vermont is 6%, says Carlene, at present, a percent, but most towns they add on their extra 1%. Yeah, the towns have to have their taxes too. I get it. Taxes are everywhere. I got it. Grumpy says, fruit of the loom. I am missing context. No. Morgan Snow said that. It jumped. The chat room jumped. Imagine if Siri didn't want to give you a straight answer, says Mordecai. I'm with you there. What if Siri's fucking with me? Oh, why that would be, the answer to that would be 8.7. I'm like, Siri, what was the snicker for? State tax. Vermont wants a 24% increase. Wow. So, you know what? Taxes are inevitable. I'm not anti-tax. I understand the reason for tax. You got to have taxation to help support your civic structure, if you will. I get that. Income tax, I have a problem with. For lots of reasons that maybe we'll talk about in a show one of these times. But taxation should be one of two things: a tax on income or a tax on goods and services. What happens when you have both of those? Your income gets taxed, Then you go out and buy something, and you get taxed again on the money you have left over from your income tax. That's supposed to be why we have deductions and all of that. But deductions don't cover everything. They don't say, there's no deduction that says, I already paid income tax, so I shouldn't have to pay tax on this goods and services thing. So, right, Scotty, but not legal invaders or trans surgeries and life care. I agree with you, Steph, 100%. Why are my taxes going to pay for illegal citizens? Citizens, not citizens of this country, illegal aliens. There, I did a Biden slip of the tongue. Are you an illegal? I mean, undocumented citizen. So an illegal alien in this country, or an invader, the rate it's been going. So, what does Daniel Craig say? He says, I have a dog named Sirius, and I'm actually asking Siri things. I'm always accidentally asking Siri things. Nice. Ask your dog things. I have a cat named Bob Saget. I always expect him to break into a comedy routine. Newcomers. Oh, newcomers. There you go. Morgan Snow. The newcomers. People say that we were a country of immigrants. By the way, that argument falls very flat. And there's a lot of reasons it does. We can go through that. I'd pay for real ETs, not these terrestrial invaders. I'd pay for real aliens. Oh, real aliens. I got it. The little icon. I got it. I wasn't reading that as a word. Sorry. Yeah. That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? But should our government be supporting people who are crossing the border illegally? That's very interesting. There was a big thing about a question not long ago, and I just saw this. I mentioned it the other day, where the room of Democrats fell absolutely silenced when asked whether or not illegals should be allowed to vote. And the Democrats remained silent on that issue. There's something going on behind the scenes. You know that. And you've got enough illegal aliens in this country and we say illegal aliens because they are not legal citizens. If you are driving your car without a driver's license in this country, are you ticketed for being they're just a newcomer to the driver's license issue? Or let's give them some money to support it because they can't afford to get their driver's license. Or are you called, undocumented drivers? No, you're illegal drivers. You're illegally driving. You don't have a driver's license. It's part of the law. So, where do you think Biden is getting his votes? There it is, Carlene. I agree with you. At least that's what they're thinking. Now, the one miscalculation they may have, what if a ton of those illegals want to vote for the other guy? Oh boy. You start connecting all the dots behind the scenes and you're going to start shaking your head. Do you know what I found having my son Sam here? It's so fun doing a radio show when you've got somebody to bounce stuff off of and they can live react with you. I could talk for a long time. And then there's times I get tired of talking. I'm like, okay, I'm done. Let's move on. It's not that I can't carry a show I could carry a 3-hour show a day talking, but I don't have time to do a 3-hour show every day. It's not my main vocation. Let's put it that way. Rush Limbaugh could do it. You know why? It was his vocation. That's what he did. But all that to say, it's sometimes nice to have people to bounce things off of. So I like it when JP calls in. Oh, that was that subtle enough? You don't have to if you got other things going on. Steph could call in and talk about stuff. Call it Stuff with Steph. And Randall Flagg, good morning. Well, I didn't say good morning to most people here today. Welcome to everybody. Morgan Snow, Carlene, Steph, JP, Randall. Good to see you. Daniel Craig. Who else we got that I've missed? Grumpy Stack. I didn't say good morning to you. I just said, hey, I just acknowledged that you were here. Mordecai is a name I'm not familiar with. If you've been here before, Mordecai, welcome again. I don't think I've ever met you in the chat room. And Delaney Pearl Jones is here. Delaney, good to see you. Who else we got in here? I'm just going backwards and seeing if I missed anybody who came into the chat room. And we've got a lot more people listening. Just not everybody wants to show their face in the chat room. You can, folks. You can come in. Harmless, lovable chat room like ours. It's always fun. You can call in, too. Anybody not know the... if you don't know what the call-in is, I'll paste it here. But it is also in the description under the YouTube description of the show for today. There you go. That's our link. Call into that link. Be prepared to be on camera, but you don't have to be. You can just be audio only. You see Sarah when she calls in most of the time, all of the time. She's just a pink dot. So, Everend is here. Good to see you, Everend. That is Carlene's other half. Did I see Wendy's post here in the chat room, Carlene, or her own post? If it was here in the chat room, I missed it. Wendy, are you out there, Wendy? Wendy, Radio Wifey, where are you? If you're out there, call in. I think she has a show today. Sometimes her Wicked Women is about as lucky as our Robertson has been lately. I've had a couple of conflicts the last 2 Tuesdays. And then we moved it to... No, I didn't see her on her page. This would be her Facebook page. Is it something I should look up? Let's see what's going on. Wendy. Calling up Wendy's post. Let's see. She's got a lot of Henry pictures up the coast. Oh, hold on. 3 hours ago, I'm presently at St. Helier Hospital and unwell. There will be no Wicked Women. We will return next Sunday. Have a good week. I did not see that post. Now, she's already saying, like I do when I have stuff that goes on, I go, I'll see you next time, but I won't be here today. So she's got something going on. I'll have to give her a shout in a little bit and see what's happening with Wendy. And last we talked was just a few days ago, because we were going to move Robertson to Thursday this last week. And Thursday morning, I had my eye surgery, and no big shakes as far as feeling good. I felt fine, except the anesthetic was still in my body, and I just felt nappy time all day. It was crazy. It was dumb. So, yeah, so we didn't do it on Thursday either. So we missed all this last week. So she is in the hospital. I think it's probably things to do with some of the things that she has made public before, and probably some of the things I know about. I will have to shoot her a message and see how she's doing. So pains related to kidneys and such, says JP. JP may have talked to her in the last few hours. I know she was experiencing some of that the other day. She looked chipper. We were talking via video on Thursday after my eye surgery, and I said, look, I might not be able to go this afternoon. And on Thursday, and she said, and she right away jumped on that with like, oh, that's okay. I think, and she said, I got stuff going on too, but I know from many conversations that she may have been okay with that because I don't think she's feeling very well either these days. So, and that's pretty sad. So there it is. I have not spoken with Wendy since Thursday. Wendy's in the hospital. So everybody send out some good thoughts and prayers for Wendy, that she feels better. Yeah, Carlene, I see your message. She did talk with me about that the other day. I didn't realize it had elevated back to just needing to get checked into the hospital again. That's a problem she's had in the past. And so there it is. I've even seen pictures. So I'm aware that and I know she mentioned it. I just didn't know it had elevated itself again. So keep her in your thoughts and prayers, everybody. Thanks for the message, Carlene. That makes sense. Yeah, kidneys and such, and all the internal things connected with all of that junk. So, what is it about our bodies starting to wear down? Wendy looks really good on the outside, but she, like all of us I've already been through my 50s. She looks exquisitely well for being in her early 50s, almost mid 50s now, but the body starts to wear out. There's parts that wear out, and we just have these constant little problems with things. So it's like my eyes were wearing out. If that's what cataracts are, that's part of your body starting to wear down. Certain things not working as well as they used to. So there you go. Grumpy says, my dad has a vein in his brain that is 95% blocked. Jeez. The doctor said no surgery because plaque could break off and kill him. So blood thinners for the rest of his life and hope a stroke doesn't hit. Yeah, isn't that what a cerebral hemorrhage is? Something like that. And boom, takes you. Have you noticed, Grumpy? I'm curious. Does that condition he has, does that look like anything? Does it look like dementia at all? Does it look like, is there anything, or it's just like a heart? We don't know it until it hits you and you have a heart attack. If you're not taking care, seeing your doctor and looking at preventive stuff. But now that he knows that's there, do you see anything in his actions every day that is altered or different because he has that going on? Or is it just, now we got to be careful because dad could stroke out? Randall Flagg says, my dad had that too. What were the symptoms, Grumpy, that made him go in and check that out? Or was it routine? I mean, routinely, doctors don't check your brains. But, oh, no, it's dizziness, some short-term memory loss, comes and goes. Yeah, see, that worries me a little bit. I've been dizzy for years. Not spinny dizzy, not vertigo necessarily, but imbalanced. And I thought, oh, it's an inner ear thing. My balance is for shit these days. But I think that's because, of everything else that's gone on. Short-term memory? Yeah. That goes pretty quick. And he can be an asshole at times. LOL, says Grumpy. Yeah. So, yeah, I've got all those symptoms. Maybe I should have that checked. But nobody said anything. Right now, I'm dizzy right now. But I think it's because of my eyes. I'm dizzy because behind my eyes is it's that pressure and stuff from having my eyes. Had surgery on both of them. So doesn't hurt. It's just weird. So I have issues that flare up right before I leave to travel, says Steph. All the time. Seems like now I pop ibuprofen, use CBD oil and gummies, and go do my thing until I can't. Yeah. That's stuff. That's why that's why we start dropping. Used to be a day we couldn't recognize all these things. People would just die in their 50s. Now they're living to be 80. At my wife's request, I've started joining her at CrossFit. I've been to 2 sessions so far, and it's kicking my ass. Really showing how out of shape I am here. But the leg exercises I've got without issue. I've been hesitant to tell the trainer that I swim in a merman tail. There you go. Yeah, it's the working out thing. It's the getting to it. There are days I come up, I refuse to sit at doctors, says Steph, for them to tell me yet again, you need to get this test done or that will be scheduled in 6 to 12 weeks. It's BS. I get it. I'm still thinking about stuffing Steph. That's quite an admission on air, Grumpy Stack. Or are you saying, did you misplace a comma? Should there be a comma after stuffing? I'm still thinking about stuffing, Steph. Or you're thinking about stuffing Steph. It's quite an admission. Right here in public on the chat channel. And Grumpy only laughs. He's a guy. We know what we're talking about. If I was going to say I'm thinking about stuffing Steph, I might drop my comma too. So stuffing us always enjoyable. There you go, Steph. Always enjoyable. Yeah, you know what? There's a certain age, when you get to a certain age, maybe young people out there would look at a guy like me or somebody Steph's age, and I'm not trying to age you, Steph. I'm just saying, you and I, neither of us are in our 20s anymore. As hot as you are, there's going to be somebody in their 20s that'll look at you and go, she's too old for me. And that's okay. What do you guys need to have sex for at your age would be a question. Because it's still fun. It's still enjoyable. It still feels good. We still like nakedness. You know, those are the things. Just because my hair's gotten white and I have more wrinkles than I used to doesn't mean I don't like sex. Steph says, LOL, I'm aged. Steph is a cougar. Wow. My kids tell me all the time I'm old. Yeah, my kids too. My 12-year-old Rowan especially. That's because you're old, Dad. I get that almost every day for some reason. That's because you're old. Rainy and I'll be talking. I'll come up the stairs from down here and I'll go, man, that last trip up the stairs, that hurt my hips. Makes my hips tired. Why are my hips so tired? You're old, Dad. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I might be old, but I know lots of things, says Steph. Ain't that the truth? There's Valerie. Good morning, Val. So, yeah, things just hurt more. We've talked about that before. There's no news flash with that. The body, is it because my body's wearing down, or is it because of old age? I need to keep in shape. We need to do things to keep it in shape. So as it decays into eventual entropic decay and death, that we got to keep it in shape. Otherwise, it's going to take us down with it real quick mentally. I have a theory, says Mordecai, that any conversation left to itself long enough will eventually turn to shit. Watch, you'll see. Mordecai, you're right. I have a very similar theory, and I've had it for the last 20 years at least, where I've said, a little more serious maybe, I've said, it seems to me that life, if things left to themselves, will always decay into shit. The natural entropy of life. You take your kitchen, for example. I was going to point upstairs at my own kitchen. Take your kitchen, for example. If you choose to neglect your kitchen, after a few days, you're going to run out of dishes. The food residue left in the one that's sitting in the sink and piling up on the counter will start to develop mold. You leave that for long enough, you're going to have a shit pile. And you're going to have bugs. And there's going to be decay like you wouldn't believe. So things left to themselves, using dishes as an example, will decay into shit and nothingness. Conversations do the same thing. If left to themselves long enough, will eventually turn to shit. On this show, it always turns to sex for some reason. That's where they always go. We have a bunch of naughty people in this chat room that are dedicated to this show. Maybe that's because I've made it so that way. I've allowed for that. Maybe I say, no more of this sexy talk. I think we'd lose half the fun that goes on in here, mixed in and wrapped around all our politics and our other stuff we talk about. Hey, look who's joining us. So there he is. There's JP.
Top of the morning to you.
How you doing, laddie?
I'm doing all right. Would have called in sooner.
St. Patrick's Day. Oh, it's your day today. We go,
Happy feast of St.
Jason
Patrick.
Patrick, it's my day.
Well, see, but the thing is, I don't ever claim that it's my day. If you know anything about it, you know the history of things and stuff. That Patrick was not Irish.
That's right, he was not.
The Patrick surname is actually not Irish.
That's right.
It's English.
It's English. Yeah, he was an Englishman.
Yeah.
That became the patron saint of Ireland.
Yeah. But
and the reason we all celebrate faux Irish.
Right.
On March 17th. You get Niall from Ireland talking about
it's an interesting thing, though. You know, what St. Patrick's is morphed into, because it was a Catholic feast day.
Right.
And
it was a pagan feast day before that.
Right. At least for the timing and everything, but it wasn't
right.
It was a Catholic feast day, which is not something where everybody is out drinking and getting pest. It was typically a little bit more somber than that.
Right.
The historically speaking, the Irish, they weren't teetotalers, but they weren't. Right. They weren't the filthy, drunkards that kind of came about, especially during the latter
part. I don't think it's even a stereotype of being a filthy drunk. They just say that the Irish drink all the time. Well, it's become a stereotype. You're right. It's become an urban myth that all Irish drink all the time.
Well, and it really has, and it really started. If you look at it, it's various stages within the diaspora. When the Irish came to the United States in mass quantities, there was a lot of negativity associated with it from the people, and so
they made Ellis Island what it is,
right? Along with the Italians and the English and the
yes.
But it's you don't have jobs, because you have signs literally saying NINA hung up in the windows. No Irish need apply, Nina. And there's some conjecture with that. There's arguments over that, but somebody has actually found an ad that says Nina. For a long time, it was considered just a rumor. But when you look at the way society was treating them, and what was going on, and what kind of the living arrangements that they kind of ended up forced into, what happens when people can't make money, can't feed themselves, can't feed their families, can't do any of those things? Well, you start seeing depression. And what do people do with depression? A lot of times they self-medicate, right?
Yep.
And so the reputation really starts in the 1800s here in the States, when you look at things. But there were, before that, and even during, there were plenty of Irishmen who, shaped the West. Quite literally.
For all it's worth, watching a movie like Gangs of New York gives you at least a pop cultural look into the history of the Irish in New York City.
Well, and if you watch, there's definitely that. Well, and the kind of the boroughs, the neighborhoods, you
Right.
know, the ghettos, if you will, that developed culturally. The Irish would stick to Irish, Italians would stick to Italians, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because they're with their own and it's familiar, and there's a
Right.
degree of safety they felt with that. But what's really interesting, if you're a fan of the Civil War at all, have you ever seen Gods and Generals?
Yes.
Okay, so you know the precursor to Killer Angels, the one about Gettysburg. In there, they cover Fredericksburg and Mary's Heights, and in that they talk about the one of the first units that goes up the hill that they depict is the 1st Irish Brigade, the 69th Regiment and others, infantry regiment and others, led by Thomas Marr. And in there, he talks about basically that there's a blip, and if you miss it, you miss it kind of thing. If you're not paying attention, but he does touch on why one of the big reasons the Irish brigades were formed, and that was because they basically wanted to prove themselves.
Right.
We're going to form up. We're going to form our own brigades, and we are going to show these people that we have earned the right to be here and earned their respect.
Remember from Gods and Generals, that very moving scene. Was it Pickett's charge?
No,
Well,
you're
I
thinking
misplaced where the
exactly
Irish
of
were-
the scene that's exactly the scene that I'm talking about. With
Yes.
And you had Marr on one side coming
That's it.
up to the sunken wall, and you
And
had
it's the Irish on the Union side and the Irish brigade on the Confederate side.
Yeah.
And they're coming into, and the Irish and the Confederates, they're all got their guns are all trained on the troops coming up, and they're like saying, not out loud at first, but they're going, don't come closer, go back, stop. You know, these are their brothers, they're Irish brothers.
Right.
And then when they had to open fire on them, and they finally retreated, the Union did. And what are the Confederate Irish doing?
They cheer them.
They're throwing up their hats and they're cheering them, not cheering the retreat. They're cheering that the lives of their brothers are not going to be taken today. And they're you know, whatever the call was.
I think in the movie they were cheering Haru.
Baru.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. Like Brian Boru.
Haru, like hooray, but instead of hooray, it's Haru.
Haru.
Yeah.
And I remember that. And that was incredibly moving scene.
Yeah.
And then
the Irish brigade actually
are cheering their brothers.
So after that battle, the Irish brigade was basically like decimated. And so the 1st Irish brigade got kind of broken up and reconstituted and then formed back up under the 2nd Irish brigade. And a number of engagements, high casualties between then and like Gettysburg. Now, when you bring
I
up,
just need to say for Grumpy, it's my island. So
when you look at Gettysburg or Killer's Angels, because you brought up Pickett's charge, so Pickett's division comes across the field, right?
yes,
And they're charging for the center where the Union is stacked up. There's that stone wall, a tree. That's where they basically set up a reconstitution, refit, rest kind of point. They're in the center of the forces. And Pickett's charge comes across the field. The only Union unit that was not routed from its position to a fallback point was the 69th Irish Regiment.
right.
They held the wall. There's a statue there to Oh my goodness! I was actually talking with my wing commander about this not all that long ago, and our chaplain, because they're doing a staff ride to Gettysburg a little bit later on in spring.
Cool.
Oh my God, what's the name of the chaplain?
While you're thinking about that, people, if you're watching, I turned on my scroll bar because of what Field Guy just said. Right after the John Adams quotes here, buy Grumpy Stack tires. I don't know if it comes around the same spot as I'm seeing it on my end.
Yeah.
There you go. That's for Grumpy.
God, I can't think of his name, but it was a chaplain from the Irish brigades that, basically he effectively, gives last rites, if you will, to everybody before they go into this engagement. And everybody else kind of saw this and they started doing the same. Yeah. There's a statue to him now, and I can't think of it.
His name off the top of my head.
I knew it. Just a couple of weeks ago when I was like, "Oh yeah, you need to check out this guy." Da 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 da. Now it's a tabula rasa up here. It's all slid off the cracker. But yeah, it was very much about trying to win dignity and honor and respect and share with the people of this country that, hey, we're just as good as you. We're not second-class citizens and things like that. It's very interesting when you start reading up on Irish history in general, but also Irish history in the New World and then in the United States. There's a lot of stuff in there, and that's why you see people every once in a while pop up when you start seeing the 1619 arguments and reparations things and stuff like that, and it's like, well, if we're going to do reparations, how about the Irish?
Yeah.
Oliver Cromwell, a curse be upon him.
Yes.
The man literally tried to breed the rebelliousness out of the Irish by transporting Scots to Ulster and setting them up there in Ulster County. And that was the whole intent. We'll take the good Scots Protestants up here and we will put them into Catholic Ireland. We'll set them up here in the north in Ulster County and other surrounding places. And our hope is they breed with the local populace and they breed the rebelliousness out of them, which horrible philosophy. But there was also the indentured servitude, the
white slavery issue. There was the book that came out, White Slavery, that talked about the Irish enslavement and servitude, and of course the 1619 people wanted to discredit that book altogether.
Right, they do, and that's the thing is, was it the same volumes? It's no, right? But it did happen, and it very much had
wasn't there something like over 420,000 Irish slaves, but it wasn't all in 1 year. It was over a decade. Or decades,
and they weren't all necessary slaves. A lot of it was indentured servitude. But if you look into a lot of the history with indentured servitude,
it's slavery.
It effectively, now you had good families who took care of their indentured servants, right? But you also had crappy ones where it was like, look, you break a plate, you're getting time added on, or you're getting charges added on, and you've got to work off the charges, and the next thing you know, you have people that are basically indentured in perpetuity. It did happen, and that's why it's one of those issues. When you look at it, it's so multifaceted, and everything gets distilled down to very finite focal points. And if you look at, and I will give the English credit on this. They eventually earned credit on this one. But under Cromwell in the Bahamas and in the Caribbean in general, and I'm trying to remember what island. again, my memory is not serving me well this morning.
Yeah.
But you literally had breeding operations going on. They would take Irish women and breed them with African males to produce a lighter skinned variant. That's where the whole mulatto thing comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually they did outlaw that practice, but for a number of years it was a thing. And it's horrible to do that. It's absolutely horrible to do that. But like there's bigger connections with things, that people dismiss, or they conveniently skirt around. If you're going to talk about one problem, let's talk about the entirety of it.
Exactly. To me, this is what, when we talk spiritually about being awake, not woke, not wokeism, but being awake, it's being able to say, I recognize that there's something much bigger and there's more to this. Now, talking about historical fact doesn't necessarily denote wake and being awake.
Right.
But that's the first thing that popped into my mind while you're talking, is when you start looking at historical facts and saying there's more to this, there's more relevance to both sides of the issue, there's more people involved, there's more, that's being able to, this is a part of being awake, I think, in the universe, in the world, is to be able to sit back and say, I understand that there's more than my point of view, or there's more than this political point of view. I see Jason, folks, and he's not going to like me saying this, or he'll feel uncomfortable. I see you as one of the more awake people I know, only because it's not because you are meticulous in the things you think about. It's because you consider things from different perspectives.
Well, and
the ability, and just having
I appreciate that. I thank you. I appreciate that. We need to do that. If there ever wants to be progress, if we ever want to see societal changes for the positive, etc.,
yes,
we have to stop cloistering around one single point of an issue, and we have to be willing,
yes,
to speak of the whole matter, and to be able to do so openly, free from criticism, and using our God-given logic and capabilities rather than emotions.
yes.
Some people would blame my ability to do that on being an Aquarius. If you subscribe to that, some people would say it's my ADHD, but
it's the whole right here. It's coming up on the scroll bar. Facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes, our inclinations, or the dictates of our passion, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidence. This was John Adams that said that. And that, to me, I think is part of that whole being not woke, being awake, being aware of your surroundings, of what the world is really like, of what's going on. You are aware that, and awake to the fact that it's not just my passion that drives something. It's not just my opinion that drives something. I look at guys like, and I've mentioned it before, George Takei, played Sulu in the original Star Trek. I've been on his Instagram since before he got all politically wacky, for probably 12 years.
I remember following him on Facebook, years and years and years and years and years ago.
Followed him because why? Because it was a trick.
Cool, and it was nowhere near the political diatribe it turned into.
And he had political things I disagreed with, but I appreciated a lot of what he had to say, the sentiments of the things he said. But lately, and every now and then I comment on some of his things on Instagram, because he has become somebody who is just, he acts like a mean-spirited old man, is what he comes across as, because he's become an overt activist for leftism.
I remember actually seeing him at the Kansas City Comic-Con. He was there along with Will Wheaton. And I was really excited because it's like, hey, we're at the Comic-Con, we're gonna talk We're going to talk Star Trek. We're going to talk other movie projects, things that are related to comic stuff. And don't get me wrong, I completely understand his
Sure.
Broadway style production
Yep.
had just, come out within the last couple
Yes.
of years. And so there was, he's still writing that, but it's like, let's not make that the focus. We're at a comic convention.
Yeah.
Can we stay on topically?
Yep.
And
Do we have to talk politics here? And I saw it was a roast of William Shatner. And they had Shatner sitting in one of the captain's chairs.
Yeah.
And it was a roast of him. And George Takei got up. You should look this up sometime. And he was scathingly nasty. He wasn't just roasting him. He was
a personal attack.
And personal nastiness.
Yeah.
And I thought, you're really going to act that way in public, dude? And even Shatner was looking. Shatner didn't respond much to it, but the look on his face, you could tell he was like, dude, this is not appropriate. He wasn't taking it personally. He was looking at it. You could tell on his face I feel sorry for you, George, for the way you're coming across. And
Kay was pretty rough with it. I mean,
yeah,
Shatner gets a hell of a lot of flack from Star Trek stuff from the people back then.
Yeah, but
there was a falling out between him and Leonard Nimoy. And things like that. People talk about.
They also patched their ways too.
Right? Yeah, they patched things up.
People said they tried to tie something into Shatner not coming to Nimoy's funeral. And he said, and Shatner spoke out about that because he was getting criticism for not showing up at Leonard Nimoy's funeral. And he said, I had something that was prearranged for that day. He says that I really felt the need not to miss. And he was heading up a charity for something.
Yeah.
And he had to show up for that. And he says, I felt that it was better serving Leonard and any memory I have of him by doing this particular event than to showing up and grieving with everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also said of him, I don't think Shatner said this. Somebody said this of him. It was close, and they said he doesn't deal well with death.
Yeah.
And he did not deal well with the death of his friend.
Yeah.
And he's only now you see him at 93 years old. He is starting to come to terms with
his own mortality.
He recently said, I'm preparing to die.
Mm-hmm.
That's what my life is now. Getting prepped for death.
Yeah.
Because he says, I know it's coming at 93.
Well, maybe he's got that. There's a new movie thing, documentary, whatever thing coming out, which looks.
Call Me Bill, I think it's called.
Yeah, actually, it's pretty
done by a great group that did a documentary on him. It's supposed to be in the theaters this month, and a limited engagement in the theaters.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see that.
Yeah.
But yes, we drifted into Star Trek. I was talking about Takei and the way that he talks, and I've come off and I've commented on some of his stuff, and I try to extricate myself out of being either pro-Trump or pro-right, and I'm not a Republican, but I'm a conservative, but I consider myself a libertarian, Jeffersonian liberal. So, but I try to make common sense, and everybody that follows George is like, they start swearing at me. They call me names. You're just a Trumpanzee, and all of and I'm like, is that really all you can see? To me,
you might want to adjust one of your cables. You're getting a little tapping feedback kind of thing.
Oh, am I?
Or you
I
have
don't know
a text
what's
message
going on with
coming
my
in.
stuff over here. Tell you the truth, there's nothing to even adjust. I don't even know what it's doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But sorry, folks, if you're getting feedback.
And that's kind of what things become so divisive that way. I mean, even one of my good friends, he's sitting there, he's consistently been a Republican voter and a conservative, and he's just gone on this whole tirade of Trump lately, and it's like, I understand what you're saying.
Who? I missed who you're talking about.
Oh, it was just a friend of mine.
Oh, okay.
From back my Army days.
Got it.
And I was like, I understand where you're coming from. Like, I absolutely do. But, like, where's your vitriol about the things that Biden's doing? Because all you're going to do at this point is drive them to whoever drive people within your circles potentially to the other camp. I said,
yes.
If you're gonna rag on one,
rag on them all.
And then if there's if you don't think either of them are a good choice, offer up someone who is.
That's it. Give me something positive. That's right. I say that on George's channel when I comment on anything. I said, George, your page, and he doesn't really see what I have to say. But I say your page has become just anything negative you can say about the GOP or the right or conservatives, you lay it out there. I said, you're not very discretionary. I said, you come across to me to be very mean-spirited.
Yeah.
And I said, because a lot of what you say is very mean-spirited. And I said, that to me is it renders what you have to say positive about the things that you believe are positive. It renders it ineffective.
Yeah.
Because of the way you talk about everything else. And about the opposition. Why don't you be honest? Why don't you be honest as opposed to being partisan?
Right.
I said, but you can't because you're an activist. I said, when you elevate your activism above your decency, this is what you get. And then, of course, everybody comes in, well, you don't have to be here. What are you here for anyway? I said, I was here long before he got into this stuff.
Right.
And I said, my understanding is this: social media. And I get this from friends that are friends of mine on social media. Well, don't comment about that on my channel. And I say, look, you put something out in the public for all of your public friends to see, but you don't want to allow anybody to say anything if they disagree with you.
Right.
And if I disagree with you, all your friends start to gang up on me, and you don't tell your friends, hey, shut up, let him have his say.
Yeah.
It's an opinion. I disagree with it, and here's why.
Right.
Defend your position.
We
I'm
are
challenging your position.
So. We are ever moving closer and closer to having zero ability to actually have rational discourse on a large level.
Rational
discourse. Not to sound like a paranoid or anything, but when you look at social media and you look at everything going on between things like Russian troll farms, which are actually a thing. But there's also a lot of other stuff, Iranian, Pakistani. There's a lot of other troll farms out there that are doing the same thing. Russia tends to only get all the attention. Again, we dial it down onto a focal point, and we just sink our teeth into it, like a snapping turtle hanging on. But also with and I know you have your thoughts and views. But with things like TikTok and the big thing coming up with a potential ban for it. And I think a lot of people don't understand that it's not necessarily an outright ban. What they're wanting is they're wanting the Chinese parent company to divest itself from TikTok.
Yes.
Right? And people don't understand. They're like, well, we give everything else to China. We give all this other stuff. And it's like, you're right. We do. But here's the real question is we've already given up a bunch of ground. Why do we want to continue to give more? There has to be a point beyond which they must not advance.
Professor just said on that very same vein, it's time for men to reclaim their masculinity and women to reclaim their femininity. It's okay to be feminine if you're a woman. It's okay to be masculine if you're a man. It's what we are.
Yeah.
It's what we are and who we are. There's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean I adhere to a a system or a philosophy that says men must, because they are masculine, put women under their thumbs. Women must be home baking bread, being barefoot, and having our babies, and cleaning our house while we're at work. It doesn't mean you have to adhere to that and believe that to be masculine or feminine.
I don't want, my gal to, do all my work for me. When it comes to that particular topic of it, I just want the presence so I feel motivated enough to take care of my own stuff, because if left to my own devices, it can get bad.
Yeah.
It's a forcing function for me. We're going to specifically on the, keeping the house clean and baking and, dinner on the table. I could cook for myself. I'm a damn good cook.
By the way,
doing it long enough.
On all this stuff, look at somebody like an Alex Baldwin, who's in all kinds of trouble over the accidental shooting death of somebody on a movie.
Hey, wasn't he nominated for most realistic murder scene on set?
At the Academy Awards? Yeah. Nice. Very nice.
Sorry. That was horrible.
It's all right. It's all right.
I apologize, everyone. That was.
But here's the way I look at that.
Low-hanging fruit.
From the start, I've kind of looked at it and I go, wait a minute. Accidents happen. Bad accidents happen. Yeah. Why does somebody always have to look for the person to blame? And I guarantee you it's about money. It's about who do we get to sue? Whose money do we get to take? Because we got to find that person to be the person to blame. Now, is there blame to go around? There's plenty of blame to go around. In that something didn't happen right. Why did you have a live weapon? Who loaded live ammo into a stage weapon in the first place?
When you start digging into stuff, there gets some interesting things come about.
I know. I don't think Alec Baldwin wanted to murder this assistant director. I think she was.
Yeah.
There's no intention there. And I don't think there was even a sideways, let's get her wounded and get her off the set. I don't think there was any of that. I don't think he was to blame at all, other than that he was the director in charge of the whole production.
Right.
And so the buck is stopping there. But there are some people that want him to get nailed for this because they don't like his politics. That's what I'm talking about. It's like what I see with Takei and others. They want to see Trump taken down with all these cases, whether they're just or not, whether it's right or not, because they don't like him.
Well, and isn't it something about, I heard something and I haven't done any independent verification, so I'm in the wrong for that, probably for saying anything, but I seem to recall hearing something about like the majority of all of these things being brought against Trump in general have been basically brought around, like foisted upon him by one guy. And I think at some point he had a presidential, trying to throw his hat in the ring for the presidential competition. So somebody can verify that.
Some scuttlebutt about that without it being solid enough to stick in my memories to who that person might be. I think it definitely has to do, and people on the left are not going to admit this, but you look at everything that is thrown at Trump, just step outside the box for a second, folks, and look at, is this because Trump was an evil man that he needs to be nailed for 20 different things all at once? No. It's because he is running again.
Yeah.
You had people that were trying to impeach him from his second day in office after he took the oath.
Yeah.
And 9 times it took him to actually impeach him. And then they impeached him twice, but it never stuck because the Senate vacated it.
Right.
But you notice that the impeachments fell along party lines. You also notice that everything that's going on with Trump, they are not Trump supporters that are leading these charges. They are people that have vowed to take Trump down. And I'm speaking in glossy generalities here about all this. But this is the problem right now, is that we as a nation are not recognizing or are tacitly going along with it because we don't like this guy and we don't want him to be in office. so we'll agree with what's happening to him. Where
Well,
if
and
it was
it's like,
somebody
at
from
the
their
end of the
political
day,
mindset that was the target of this, they'd be up in arms against it.
yeah, no, they
So,
absolutely would. And the other thing too is how much of this stuff is actual criminal versus civil?
right.
And people don't like to acknowledge that there is a difference between criminal and civil. Like
Yes. Huge
difference between the two.
the whole thing of where the
But it
jury
all gets conflated as the same thing.
and the judge said Trump did not rape that woman that claimed he raped her 40 years ago.
Right.
But civilly, they said, well, and they came short. The jury came short of saying he raped her. Well, he did stuff that, came this short of close of rape. It was harassment or physical harassment or whatever they called it.
Mm-hmm.
But they awarded her $91 million, which is excessive.
Well, have they actually taken the excessive the excessive charges thing to court? Have they actually done that with because the whole thing was that was hilarious about some of that was the fact that it was Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a Democrat, who wrote a lot of papers on excessive fines.
Yes.
And people should be free from excessive fines, and trying to define what excessive is. So it's kind of
it's like what is it?
It's
The
like,
385
your own person
million
to save the guy you hate.
The 385 million tagged against him, which is closer to 400 million.
Yeah.
By a judge who should have been recused from that case anyway, because he is an outspoken Trump hater.
Yeah.
Before the trials, the judge, Ernigan or whatever, however you say his name.
Well, and that's the thing. That's the thing too. There, that is a great point. That with just bringing up the level of conflict of interest, that enters into things is, and I mean, in general, is atrocious. It's absolutely atrocious.
Yeah.
And it goes all the way down to the local level. Like you see things with property taxes and home valuations and all of this stuff here local. Our mayor is a real estate developer.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those things where hey, look, we want more people who are home and property owners, right? You increase your tax base, the tax burden gets spread out more equally, right?
Right.
So if you're building new homes and you understand that there is a housing shortage in our area, but we need more property owners, why don't you build more starter homes?
Yeah.
Let's think of the old tract housing from, the 40s and going into the 50s, post-World War II with the GI Bill, because those weren't horrible, popsicle stick and twig lean-to type, shanty shacks. They were good homes. Some manufacturers and builders obviously can cause issues if they're less than scrupulous, but they were for the most part good homes. Many of them have lasted well into today. And for a starting family, a single person, newly married, whatever, it's a perfect option to become a homeowner, get in there, contribute with your property taxes, even though I have severe reservations with property taxes. But if it's spread out amongst more people, that drives the amount of tax down. But
Jason, that's where the rebels go to live.
That's right. That's right. Oh, by the way, folks, I was going to say before he said anything, the prodigal has returned home.
Somebody has come.
We haven't seen him for a while.
Back.
Who is that? What is that voice? I recognize it somewhat.
That's not him.
I do want to say I have to put this disclaimer before Professor, before you start. I have to put this disclaimer in. I have to be out of here at 11 sharp today. So anything you say has to fit into 20 minutes with room for response.
So that means you have to give the actual definition of what the Great Reset and Revelation thing is. You can't opine endlessly talking around.
Well,
what
in
it
order
is.
to
You just
talk
have
about
be
that,
like,
I'm going to have to
we're
go
all
back
getting
to
chips
this
buried in
point,
our
which
head, and we're
actually
all figuring
starts
out
way
this is
back
the
here.
Matrix.
So let's
or
start back here before I
Okay,
answer your
I
question.
recognize this tactic. To cut into my time, where there's all this ad hominems and inaccurate definitions of my intervention and interruption. So it's good to be back, and it's good to be seen. And I have enjoyed the time off because I've been highly productive. And in that productivity, to your point, Jason,
Yes.
I no longer have to feel like I have to go through these long dissertations of loquacious and verbose definitions of things. All you have to do now is look around and see the statement, evidence of the statement I put into the chat. Men have become emasculated by overly masculine women, particularly those who are on the left, people who subscribe to the liberal progressive ideology. If you look at that group, all you have to do is a very simple trends analysis. You look at the content and you look at the character. And what you see is a whole bunch of pissed off women and a bunch of pussified men. And that in and of itself is what's creating a great deal. Oh, no, I should have put the caveat warning before this. Anything I say after this will get you canceled. So if you want to get canceled,
there
stay
you go.
on.
Yeah. Oh, wait.
The
The opinions expressed by
no one
Professor
else.
Bauer do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this station or of YouTube or anybody like that. So,
Hold up the
YouTube,
sign
so
that's got the fine print on it.
My point
YouTube
is,
has to go do an anatomically unlikely thing to itself. So
my point is that all you have to do is just look objectively at the people that are involved in all of the high volume, high emotion content that's being put into the conversation. There is a commonality, a common set of attributes and characteristics of people who have seriously, it is mental illness. And it's so amazing to me that, we don't hear anything about Rush Limbaugh anymore. But back in the mid 90s, he was going on about how liberalism was a mental disorder. And if we don't see just a cacophony of mental crap, people with parasites in their minds, and it ties back to what you were just saying, talking about, Scotty, with this whole TDS thing. Everything that they're throwing at Trump is nothing but bullshit.
it is.
And you can be as I am, I believe in the rule of law and no one is above or below and everything. So, well, Trump is outside the law, because what's happened now is that people have taken and they've weaponized anything they can find to go after not only Trump, but all of those who have been canceled, which is another part of my observational rant. And I've had enough with these people.
A rant?
Oh my God! Look who is here!
Oh my goodness!
I gotta take the banner down so we can see all of her.
It's got like the Farrah Fawcett feathers going on.
Yeah, this is it.
Nice.
I just wanted to say hello.
Yeah, we got to bring you up a little bit. There you go. There's Steph, our one and only.
Ugh.
I'm winking at you with both my eyes.
That I never pop in to say hello.
I'm glad you did today.
Was it something I said?
No, I just wanted to interrupt you. So something to take a breath.
Wow, we got KB here too.
Look at that.
Who's that?
That's it.
That's right here, man.
So
apparently, come on.
So apparently,
Where's Fieldy? I got to get on panel with Fieldy.
So apparently, there's a few additional souls like myself who don't care to be canceled, and may even actually harbor some of the same opinions that I have just put forth. And I'm going to finish that up, and then I'll let everybody go. The cancel stuff. If anybody's telling you follow the science, well, yeah, I follow the science, and every time I go to the end of it, I find a pile of money. If somebody is saying you are a science denier, it's like, no, every time I look at science keeps falling over and failing. If you look at those that you're told that you cannot or should not listen to, their opinions, their voices, their ideas, their words are that which are poison. They are misinformation. They are this, that, and anything other than acceptable. You look at that class, what used to be the Me Too, and actually now that we have AI in, we're having the R2 Me Too reboot.
I like calling them not you.
If you look at the people that have been canceled and shoved to the side, marginalized, sequestered, what you find is every one of them has become even more powerful and better than they were before they were canceled.
Right.
And what does that tell you? To me, it's like
Yeah.
when people ask me, "Well, how do you sort through the shit, Bauer? What's your filter? What's your framework? Where did you buy
I
your
was just going to
bullshit
ask you,
meter?"
what's your take, Bauer?
Right? I say, well, the first place I looked is if somebody is coming at me with a lot of volume, a lot of velocity, and a lot of emotion, and they're trying to convince me of their way of the view of the world, and they want to hear their words coming out of my mouth, they're the first ones that I push immediately to the side. You already have a mental parasite that's causing you to flip out and not have no contact to reality. But the second one is
You
who's
leave
been
my
silent.
ADHD out of this.
Exactly.
It's
The
true.
second one is who's been silenced. If someone has been silenced, those are the second ones that I want to go find. I want to find out why. I want to hear what they have to say. Because if there's this clattering crap of nattering nabobs out there causing all this chaos in the conversation, throwing the crap into the bowl and trying to make us think one way or go one way or do one thing, it's all a part of the carefully crafted and curated narrative that's designed to keep us divided and at least start the division, if not keep it.
Yes.
And the final part of the rant is that in spite of all that crap, I am extremely optimistic and feel very good because what we're seeing around the world right now is the rise of the pissed off peeps.
Yes.
There's more people that have had enough. And even in the normie land, the people who weren't even possibly, they may have been sheep, but there's also a level below that called the sleeple. These are a lot of people just asleep. Well, what's happening is the amount of crap that they're being forced to consume and having to parry off and figure out what's right and what isn't. They're at the most innate part of our being and our consciousness. We all have a built-in bullshit meter. We all have a common sense filter. And you don't have to be educated. You don't have to be worldly. You don't have to be experienced. Exactly. Those things are popping off innately within the majority of the population of the peeps around the world. We're seeing it in France.
But what do you feel about the lawsuit from the female swimmers trying to get their trophies back?
They just
I
did.
think it's awesome.
I
think that is the perfect example.
Didn't Riley Gaines get awarded all of those the trophies?
Yes.
Yeah, but
Something
there's
like
like
that.
a lawsuit going against all the women.
I will say, Professor, in less than 8 minutes, you have made up for your 3-week absence. And so,
well, thank you. I try hard. I'm a giver.
Field Guy is here too.
I like
How you doing, Field Guy?
I'm okay. I'm just listening to the rain.
You be
It's
careful.
the rain or the rant?
Rain.
The
Well,
rain.
Which rant? Wait, we gotta time these rants. It's now 10:48. Let's
Yeah,
see. We'll be
Scotty's
done by 12.
Yeah, I have to be out of here at 11. I got people coming over, so I've got to get out while the getting out's good at 11. So we've got about 12 minutes left, 11 minutes left to this show. So
I just wanted to pop in and say hello.
I'm glad you did, Steph.
All right. So I'm gonna
Steph, you owe me an appearance on my panel.
I will try to make
I'm just glad everybody else came in and the professor showed up. I was tired of having to carry his weight around.
Yeah. Jason has been burdened. His shoulders are drooping.
You do a
Alright,
great job.
Not only his own
Yeah.
opinions,
Yeah.
but
Great
the
job.
professor's. And to stand in the professor and Jason Patrick.
That doesn't
and
flow at all. That we can't. No, you had a different jingle. Got to come up with it.
Yeah. That one's too different. That one's too weird.
Well, just remember in that reference that everybody on Gilligan's Island, they always listen to the professor.
That's
Right.
right.
And
they
here's
always
what I
like
want to
end-
know: why didn't the
Yeah.
professor just patch the boat?
Yeah, Professor,
He
with
wanted
all
to
the
be on
things
that.
that he invented out of making coconuts into batteries, how could he not find a way to patch the boat?
Right?
Coconut bikini
And one of
too.
the real mysteries to me is where did they find the toilet paper? I mean,
Yeah.
how long were they on that island and they didn't have toilet paper? I mean, what happened there?
Palm fronds.
Lee,
I think it was
but you-
palm fronds,
Yeah.
palm fronds.
You take the wood from the plant life
I want to
All
see
to
that
make your own
missing
paper.
episode, the missing episode where Marianne and Ginger went to the professor and asked him how they could make bikinis out of palm fronds, the little thin palm fronds, and he came up with a pretty good
Do you think he
minimalist.
sized them with the coconuts? This is your size. This is your size.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to do a little measuring, he said.
If my calculations are correct.
Field guy's
That's
got
right.
the right measuring cups there. So
Well, you know, and that's the interesting thing you bringing up with Gilligan's Island and the professor. as a
nobody
character.
had any babies.
Is that your size, field guy?
Not mine.
When Gilligan's Island came out, that's kind of the tail end of science and the scientists being the rock stars of their day. Like if you look at all those guys prior to that, if you were a scientist and you were like a legit scientist that actually had a lot going on and involved in a lot of stuff, you had groupies. They had groupies. Like it's
How
really
many
interesting.
groupies did Skipper have?
None.
We got Ken
No, he had
Bellis'
one. He
nostril
had one. He had
there.
Gilligan.
The one that could get them off the island because he could maneuver. and
Right.
navigate. No groupies.
Now, by the way, the cast, there's only one person left living, isn't there? And that's Ginger,
The one who hated the show.
the one who hated the show the most after it was over.
She's outlasted it out of vengeance.
Yeah, probably.
Is
I
that
think
because
she's the
a
only
fiery
one still
redhead?
alive.
Is that because what?
Huh?
What was that, Steph? You said
Is
because
it
of what?
because she's a fiery redhead or crazy redhead?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe.
Yeah, whatever. So,
Don't ask me. I just work here.
and I will say, just because it needs to be said for the record, I was a Marianne side of the.
Neither
scale.
one of them minded being eye candy. Let's face it.
Yeah. Yeah. Who was it? The guy who owns a station, Russ Hasledge, who comes on every now and then. Trek Federation. He knew Dawn Wells, who played Marianne. So
I hope they were nice people.
she was a very nice person from everything. Did I lose you? I don't know how I did that.
There he is.
I accidentally hit my space bar. And
He
he went
has
away.
a great view of his ear or a nostril. I don't know what's
That's
going
a
on.
nostril, I
That is
think.
flare.
Kenny,
Oh, it is a flare.
Kenny, I'm going to
nostril.
take you out. I thought you might come back, but we just got your nostril there or something. So
He did
Mrs.
some good
Howell had the
landscaping.
money,
There was
though.
no
Yeah,
hairs
there you
out
go.
there. So
He's a member of the La Cosa Nostril.
not today. Is that your motto, or is that your sad state of affairs?
That was a T-shirt I saw at work, so I took a picture of it.
There you go.
It's like, I
Where are
don't
you
want to deal
working
with
now?
bullshit today. I am working for a chain place right down the streets from the last job.
All right.
But-
All right.
all right, I'm backing out, guys. This way you can leave on time, Scotty.
Steph,
I want
here
to
we
say
got it.
hi.
We got to bring you up. There you go. There's Steph. Thanks for coming in today. You
Bye,
got to do
guys.
this more often.
Yep, I will be back.
Great
All
to see you,
right.
Steph.
Bye.
Good to
guys.
see you.
See
Have
ya.
a fun Sunday.
Thank you. You too.
See you later. All right. It's just the four men now. And we've got about 5.5 minutes left of this show.
Professor,
So,
filibuster for a minute.
Professor, we got to have you on during the week so
He
we
can't
can
do
get
that
a
for a
little more
minute.
in depth on
Okay.
this than 10 minutes worth. So,
Well, it's got plenty of additional content that can dive into any one of the individual segments, but there is, to me, it's just coming down. It's come down to a nutshell, and that nutshell that I tried to put together and say in just a few minutes. There is an obvious mental condition going on in our society, and that mental condition is what's, in my opinion, creating the majority of the havoc and the chaos and the crap and the conversations, because people have said that they feel that whoever they don't like is doomed, and they should be doomed. And that
Yes.
kind of discourse and that kind of perspective can only come from a mental health condition. And then when you look again, just being objective at the characteristics of the characters on either side, when you look at that group on the left, it's all the noise, the volume, the velocity, and the violence and the bullshit. It's all those folks on the left. It's not that they're every one of them. It's not, doesn't speak to, it's a generality. Yeah. And what you see is that is the basic premise from which they move forth. And you go, well, wait a minute. Why are you guys so angry? What are you so pissed off about? What is all this angst that you're feeling and emotional?
You must go see the
triggering.
man on the mountain.
And they won't look at it themselves, other than they feel that it's warranted. It's there for a good reason. Thank you, Sarah. Generalization, yes.
Generalization.
And that in and of itself precludes any self-examination, any introspection. And there's none of that being done over there. It is simply that we have to be right because we are right. And it's like, no, you're not only not right, you've got some screws loose. And until they acknowledge that, they're not going to change. But the more important thing is those on the outside of that ideology acknowledge it. You're going to be able to deal with it in a more effective way. In a lot of ways, the what would seem to be the antithetical approach is, instead of trying to push back on it, embrace it. Yes. Embrace the folks that are going, yeah, I see how you can be so pissed off about this one person and have fear and loathing over this person being in the public square and having a voice of their own. Yeah, I can kind of see that. So how do we address that? How do we make that something? How do we transform it into something that
Steph has a
more
solution.
palatable? Right.
By the way, that's not a Sunday thing. That's a Monday morning thing, Steph.
Yeah, that sounds like Monday morning.
There it is.
So anyway, that's my little perspective on this thing.
And it takes, I think, not to over spiritualize, I think it takes being awake to get this, not woke. It takes being awake, because you have to step back and see,
self-aware.
There's a much broader picture here. There's much more to look at. There's many more details to look at. What was that, Jason? Did you throw something in there?
I said being aware, self-aware.
Yes, being aware.
It's just as much awake. It's being self-aware and understanding. Okay, hey, I'm thinking this. Why am I thinking this? Let's examine this. Oh, well, you know what? There's more layers to things, and it's not just. I'm not talking about like a mental state. I'm talking informationally. And being self-aware in your own shortcomings to actually dig deep enough to get the entire perspective.
Yes.
So,
and that is one of the things that is very difficult when you have a mental parasite or multiple mental parasites, is that multiple layers and nuance add content to the context. And that is a part of just being aware, as Jason was saying. Yes. But the people that can't deal with multiple layers and nuance often hear all of those layers and nuance as being vague and imprecise. And that's because they can't wrap their minds around all of the different components that are actually involved in whatever the subject is.
Well, you know what?
So you're absolutely right, Jason.
I would actually argue that it isn't necessarily that they're incapable of wrapping their minds around things. I would argue that it is probably more akin to if you wrap your mind around everything and you actually look at something, you may find something that upends something that a belief or a thought or a value that you've long held, and now your identity is out the window. It's the fear of something that could disrupt or change things.
Make your point.
That was my point.
He's made his point. Guys, we got to wrap it because I got to get out of here lest I experience the wrath of someone. So
Raini?
All of you guys, thanks for being here. I'm going to set you off on your ways. Field Guy, join him tonight for his stream. Put it out there so people know when you're going to be up. See you, Fieldy. Don't drown in the rain. Professor, good to have you. Let's have you tomorrow night. We'll talk about this awakeness.
I enjoy being had, and will be had again. Thank you.
I always enjoy being had. It's always a good thing. See you later, brother.
Later, Prof.
Jason, good to talk to you. You have a good
As
day.
always.
I'll see you tomorrow. Everybody else, thank you for being here. We got to get out of here today, and I appreciate your being part of this program today. We're out. See you tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern for Intrepid Radio. Live long and prosper.